has returned bigger, badder, faster and more epic than ever before, and after my detailed look at the console release across PS4 and Xbox One, we now know how gorgeously grotesque the new game is. Bringing a breath of fresh air to the first-person shooter on a planet with none at all. Now we look at how it runs across two budget-range PCs and if Nvidia or AMD is the way to go, along with if they can lose or can they exceed what the console release have offered up. As the Space Marine would say himself, that is a man of little words, isn't he, really? Now, first up, we have some driver updates to cover, and is actually one of the reasons this is later than I wanted, with the Vulkan release still not out yet, but is due shortly. The game is not a DirectX based one, but an OpenGL one, meaning that both hardware manufacturers have a chance to stretch their GL legs for this title. Now, Nvidia had its driver up at launch, and AMD came a few days later with its hotfix. Here we can look at what is delivered on the R270/7870 machine paired with an octo-core FX 8350 CPU. Now, running the 16.32 driver at the start, we see settings around medium. This is what the consoles are, but I'll cover that later. We can see the game struggles to hit 30, let alone 60. Now, this does not get any better, and the first pairback needed here is the virtual texture space back from the console's high to medium, which helps alleviate the long 100 millisecond stutters, doesn't remove them completely, mind, and this is because VRAM is near max at all times when this is at high. The card only has 2 gig, remember. Now, from here we can see the game is not looking good for AMD cards at this point, or for the OpenGL driver as a whole. But to the rescue is AMD Driver Squad, shipping in a hotfix release just after the release weekend on the 16th. But has this saved the day for Team Red, or is it a placebo update? Well, as you can see with the like-for-like on-screen examples, this is a revelation on the game. All tests on the AMD card are performed with VSync on. I'll cover why in a moment. Now, this offers up at points throughout the opening battles over 100% frame time increase and a huge boost, the average from a lowly 36 to a near 50, some 12 FPS higher on average. But more importantly, it now renders above the 40 mark and into the 50s far more often, with the older driver seeing us stay into the 30s and even dip to the 20s on far too regular occasions. The simple point is, if you have this game and an AMD card, install this driver. It is an absolute necessity. So from here on in, we have a good base to test the AMD machine and see how close we can get to the console versions, and if Team Green and its budget 750 Ti card can muster a better experience. So let's check that out. Now, running with the same 8350 CPU and Nvidia's latest driver, 365.19, we can see that on the same medium level settings, it struggles to match the level of the 270 card, and that also means it's even further behind what we get on the Xbox One and the PS4. Now, the change here is that on consoles, the game runs a dynamic resolution, which we do not have on PC. This means that from my test, we are looking at approximately a 1600 by 900 level for Xbox One, with it also hitting a full 1080 and a lower level at various times depending on the action. The PS4 does a much better job of holding 1080, but it can also dip to a low of 1728 by 1080 when the GPU is being taxed more, and that is my lowest counted test. I'm not saying it doesn't go lower than this, just that from quite a few tests I never found a lower point than this. This means that we only see a one-axis reduction of around 10% on the PS4 to keep it near its 60 FPS delivery, coming in with a long 9-minute test across various sections with a 59 FPS average, and the Xbox One close behind with 57. You can check out all the detail of these console releases in my head-to-head video, link in the description below and obviously in the video here. So with these levels set, we can see that both cards struggle to hit a lock 60 at the same settings. Now, rather than explain them all, you can see on screen what I've set up on the PC to match the console version as close as I can find. It means that most options are at the medium level, with only decals being the lowest setting of low. But like many options in the game, this only affects the distance these objects are rendered in, and shadows between medium and ultra are nearly impossible to spot the difference. They just have a much further cascade level the higher up you go, and thus draw in sooner. Now, directional screen space occlusion is also used and works similar to screen space ambient occlusion, which you've seen in other titles, of which you can see the various levels on screen. Medium, high are not that far apart, and it can include colour bleed from objects on screen from single light sources, but I've yet to encounter on any version an example of this in action. It may be in there, but I have yet to see it. But ultimately, the ambient work in this game is very nice indeed. Helpful with so many dynamic light sources and abundant shadow maps across the planes of Mars and Hell. There are a few points in the game where this looks like some baked shadows and texture work in there, but overall it's a very dynamic looking game. So with all settings confirmed, the obvious changes are the frame rate and the IQ, as the PC seems to have a reduced AA pass from the consoles, using the same TSAA times 8 option, temporal supersampled anti-aliasing, which includes a bespoke MSAA element on geometric edges. Now this could be down further to the filtering that the PC has in the advanced options, along with some nice render options delivering that alien feeling when put into cinematic mode, complete with letterbox borders. Now I know PC purists will be disgusted with the loss of real estate here, but it's actually quite a nice option. Something that the console versions has, but here PC gamers get a wealth more, this one included, and it is very welcome and impressive. But setting the sharpening filter to 0 gets a softer look, and this looks more in line with the console release. It's not identical mind, but it is close, so it may be a combination of both a stronger blend with its reprojected weighted frame blend on consoles and or the lack of any sharpening going on, along with the changes to the actual AA solution. You can also see here with the GPU particles being specular highlights on PC, which is missing on the PS4 and Xbox One. Now I have contacted developers to get some more info on the game and its impressive engine, so please stay tuned to my channel and site for that if I get an answer back. Now this aside, you can check out the image gallery on my website to see more, but we are looking at a like for like match now, and still we see performance dips below the 60 FPS you would want or expect of the R270 or 7870 card at least. Now dipping the internal render to 90% on both, giving us an approximate 1824 by 1026, near the same pixel count of the lowest point ever counted, the 1728 by 1080, the rare lows on PS4. We get closer to the 60 rate we want on the AMD machine, but the Nvidia one needs more, and to get at this level and a further drop of 70% sees it claw back the margin with a softer look more in line with the Xbox One and delivering nearly the same performance metrics. But there is a big caveat here, which I mentioned earlier. The VSync option on the Nvidia cards, or at least the 750 Ti, doesn't seem to work very well at all. It basically jumps between 30 and 60 frames, capping itself at quite regular points. The only option is then to turn on adaptive VSync, or even better still, turn VSync off completely, and then you get a much smoother performance, but unfortunately it means the screen is basically tearing itself to death throughout the whole time you're playing. Even overclocking the 750 Ti by 100 MHz on the core clock and 200 on the memory still doesn't claw back that much performance at all. VSync is still required to give you a near 60 performance, but again, like I say, it's a tear fest, so it's a sacrifice you're going to have to make at this point with whatever's going on that driver, and that includes me trying to use Riva Tuner and the actual Nvidia driver panel itself to try and cap to 60. Nothing seems to bypass that. Now at this level, both PCs failed to hit the same as the PS4, with the AMD machine beating the other two to come in just behind the PS4 in action. But that said, it performs worse than the Xbox One unless you dip the resolution or settings slightly more to claw back that fully VSync 60. Now the game still dips more often or hangs for longer periods on the PC, even though the AMD is far worse than Nvidia's card. We're seeing nothing like that on Nvidia, with the highest dip being 50 milliseconds, whereas the AMD machine on both drivers still has up to 116 and 150 millisecond hangs, which you can see in the frame time graph. Now I even performed a full clean install of Windows from scratch in addition to the driver update to make sure we had the best level possible for both machines, as I really tried to figure out what was going on with Nvidia's VSync issue, at least on the 750 Ti machine. It really cannot be fixed, and that includes Riva Tuner and using the driver panel. Now, but these bigger dips aside, so long as you tweak the settings as shown, or drop back shadows, etc. and lighting, you can get back some of that performance and resolution and still enjoy the fast action of Mars across a range of PC hardware. Now my higher end i5 970 look will be up shortly, but I may hold off slightly until the Vulkan driver is released, so we can get a good test of how that performs and if it could claw back some performance on both machines, and see if that loss can be turned into a win for PC, and we can boldly go where no one has gone before, aside the Nvidia 1080. So at the end, it's the PS4 that comes out on top, with the AMD close behind, and the Xbox One being a choice between the two. You can get this better performance on Xbox One with slightly lower resolution, but you could claw that back on the AMD machine, so the choice is yours. Ultimately, the 750 Ti loses heavily here on a very GPU-centric title, so that's not much of a surprise. It struggles to keep anywhere near anyone's level, and the performance, along with the VSync issue, is an odd one and puts it a very distant last, and I can't really recommend it for anybody. As with all these things, it's a moving feast, and this may change with updates from Nvidia themselves or patches from further releases, so we'll see how it goes, and I will update you on the situation with Nvidia and AMD, and certainly what that Vulkan driver can deliver. And with that, I am out of time, but I hope you enjoyed this or anything else that I've put together. If so, then please subscribe to support my future work and this channel. Feel free to share anything that I have covered and leave all your thoughts below. And it's a thumbs up from me and hopefully from you guys, along with the Marine. I know. I'll see myself out, and hopefully all of you on the next one.